Hello, everybody. So today I'm going to talk about short stories by Philip K. Dick. Um, I'm starting with. We're going to do one at a time because they're all really good. I'm going to start with Stability. Yeah, the first one in the book. Okay. Now I believe there's a couple books, probably 3 or 4 books in this series. He was very prolific, so there is a ton of this stuff. Um, this one's called Paycheck. It's probably the most famous story. I think there's a film based on that short story. A lot of these actually have films based on them. They're not. It's weird to take a short story that's probably 10 minutes worth of film or 15 minutes and make a 2 hour movie out of it. The example I can think of the most is probably Minority Report. Um, that was a Spielberg film that was based on Philip K. Dick's short story, Minority Report. And the first half of that movie, in my opinion, is brilliant. Now, I haven't read the short story Minority Report yet, but I'll bet one of the books in this series is called Minority Report and has a bunch of short stories by Philip K. Dick. When I get to that one, I'm going to let you know if this is true or not. But as far as I can tell, I'll bet the first half of the film is the short story. And then Spielberg takes over for the second half, and it goes just bonkers. But the first half is really incredible. I'm saying half, but I'm not sure really where the line is. There's a really big, powerful moment in the film which I did not see coming. Maybe it's predictable for other people, but I had no idea. And it's so obvious when you see it. I mean, it's just brilliant. Um, but, anyways, collection of short stories by Philip K. Dick. We're starting with Stability. So, Stability is a short story about a society where the government has decided that you either progress as a society or you fall backwards. And they are so terrified of falling backwards that they decide to break that mold, that idea, and they just go for stability. Right? There's a government agency with a person in it called the controller, and the controller reviews all inventions and all ideas that are considered to possibly be published for the society to consume. And if they determine that it will drive the society forward or backward, they say, no, this will not be released, you can't do it. And they've trained their population to kind of accept that the controller is the last word. And this is about an inventor. So this inventor, this person, it opens with him up on his roof, and he spreads his wings, and he takes off into the sky. And that's the real beauty of Philip K. Dick is he is not, his imagination is incredible. The stories are just strange. The places that you can go. We'll have to do one on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep because, I mean, Blade Runner is a good film, but that book, they're not, it wasn't a real faithful adaptation. A lot of it's in there, but there are amazing things that were left out. Sorry, I have some crazy cats that are playing around. You're probably going to hear them running and maybe even see one if we're lucky. But stability. So this person is clearly someone in this society has invented wings that people can put on and they can just fly through the sky. And they've clearly progressed quite a bit. And then the government got paranoid And they realized, oh my gosh, if we keep progressing like this, there's going to come a time when we fall backwards, and we don't want that to happen. So no more progression. We're just going for stability. So this guy puts on his wings, he takes off flying, and it turns out that he's going to the controller's office. He lands, he goes into the controller's office, he hangs his wings up on a hook, and the controller says, I'm sorry, we just cannot let you publish this invention that you've created because it will progress our society forward, and that could lead to a regression. We're not going to do it. And he says, what invention? I haven't turned in an invention. And he says, yeah, you have. You really have. If you want to see it, just go downstairs and you can pick it up. And he's like, okay. So he goes downstairs and he goes to pick up the invention. They bring out this little tiny box. He opens it up. It's this little intricate machine, which he doesn't recognize at all. And he says, can I take this? And they say, well, yeah, if you're the person who invented it. So he pulls out his ID, shows them, sure enough, he's the person who invented it. So they give it to him and he takes it. He goes downstairs, he gets a cab, and he goes home. When he gets home, he realizes, oh shoot, I forgot my wings. They're still hanging in the office. But he's looking over this tiny invention and he realizes that there's a button on it that he can hit to start it. So he hits the button and he immediately falls through the floor, and he just falls and falls. And then he lands in this huge field of wheat. Now he knows what a field of wheat is, but not because where he lives, not the age that he lives in. The age that he lives in does not have fields of wheat on planet Earth. That was a thing of the long past. And yet, here he is standing in one, and he walks and walks, and he comes upon a forest. And once again, forests are not a thing on his Earth, but they are a thing here. So he goes into the forest. And as he goes in, he starts feeling drawn towards something. He's kind of being pulled. And he goes and goes, and he finds this little glass sphere that has a miniature city inside of it. And the detail's incredible. It's a whole city inside this little glass sphere. And he picks it up, and suddenly you can hear this voice saying, put that down. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to touch that. You should know that that is the evil city that nearly destroyed our society. And it was punished by being put inside this glass ball and being stuck here. So leave it there. And he still feels drawn to it and pulled to it, and he says, no, I'm taking it. And the voice says, I'm the guardian, you can't take it. And he's got it, and he just says, no, I'm taking it. He puts it in his pocket, turns around, and starts walking back. And the guardian's trying to make him put it down, but the guardian can't do anything. He's just talking to him. So eventually he gets back to the field of wheat, and then he gets drawn back to his apartment. And his invention is there, and he figures, oh, this is clearly a time machine that I apparently created, but don't know. So then you cut back to the controllers, and they're having some big meeting about that invention, about the time machine. And they're saying, look, he came in saying that he invented a time machine. And then when he came back in, he said he'd never been there. So clearly, he's used his invention. He has gone back in time, which is very dangerous because that city is held back there. And if he gets that, we're all doomed. So they decide, all right, we're going to his house. They go to his house. He's like, I don't have the crystal ball. I don't have the city. And they're like, well, we're going to search. And they search around and search around. And then eventually he's like, okay, fine, I do have it. It's right here. And he shows them. And they're like, that's the evil city. You can't have that. And he throws it down and shatters it. And the minute it breaks, everybody they're just in a different place. They're, they're not like teleported or beamed like in Star Trek. They just are in a different place. And in fact, they have no memory of being in the society with the flying wings and everything. They are basically kind of in a prison camp, and they're woken up in the morning, and they all form this long line that is marching down toward these machines, and their job is to make sure that these machines are taken care of. And that's their entire existence. Their entire purpose is to take care of these machines. And I want to read you the last line. I don't have my glasses, so I'm worried that I'm not actually going to be able to see it. But if I can, I want to read this to you because it's a really nice line. He's hoping, as our protagonist is marching in the line, he thinks to himself, I kind of recognize some of these faces, but I don't know, maybe it was just a dream. And he gives up on it, which to me is clearly a reference to the fact that he was literally just standing in his living room with these people, and now he's teleported here or somehow exists here, and that memory is just leaking away from him as if it were just a dream. And then he thinks, I hope I get a raise. I hope that I receive some kind of a bonus. And I think he talks about how my next break is due in 3 weeks, which I assume means like a day off. He gets a day off in 3 weeks, and he's hoping for this little bonus. And then the last line is, for had he not been tending his machine faithfully, for had he not been tending his machine faithfully, he thinks, I deserve this raise because I've been tending my machine faithfully. And that's the end. That's it. And it was really intriguing and strange. And right after I was done, I was like, wait a minute. Did Philip K. Dick just say that we should trust the government and that progression and inventions are bad? You know, theme is a very important thing for me, personally. Like, if the theme of a story, to me, is not something that I agree with, I probably won't like the story. You know what I mean? Like, if you read a story that's like, killing babies is good and everybody should run out and kill babies, not that that kind of story would exist, but if it did, you know, I don't care how beautiful the prose are, I don't want to read that story, you know? So I was a little bit shocked. I was a little bit confused. So I went and I looked up when the story was written, and it was written in 1947. I was like, okay, after World War II, maybe there was enough nationalism that Philip K. Dick was feeling this. And then I had to just take a step back and I had to think for a minute. And I had to realize the society that the people with wings were living in was a mess. It was terrible. And the reason it was terrible is because they decided to stop progressing. That society that they had created was stagnant, and it destroyed itself. Right? That protagonist who was being drawn towards that globe was so easily persuaded to do this horrible, evil thing, to break the globe and banish everyone to this horrible future where they just serve this God, King, Master machine for their entire existence. The society created that. And the way they created that was by making their people basically sheep, you know? And I don't like to use that term a lot because I know it's been kind of co-opted by these kind of more militant groups on the internet. Um, but that's what they kind of did. They made all their people just say, "Oh, okay," no matter what. Like, you invented this amazing thing, but you don't get to tell anyone about it because you might give us progress or regression. Oh, okay. And they just give up. And the minute he started getting drawn towards that globe, it was just like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll do it. No matter what opposition his mind might be telling him, or this voice of reason from the outside saying you can't do that, you'll hurt everyone, and it didn't matter because he already said, oh, okay. And I kind of realized that society in the beginning was the problem, and that society created that downfall. And I think that's what this story is warning us about. It's a little bit like today with the Republican Party, to be perfectly honest. The idea that their people are, and this is only the extremes, right? There is an extreme version of the Republican Party that is causing problems, mostly for the Republican Party, to be perfectly honest. The Republican Party is kind of in this position today where the extreme, and of course, I'm only talking about an extreme faction of it, right? There's lots of normal Republicans in the world, but there's this extreme faction that is formed that just does what they're told. They do not care. And it's so weird because the rhetoric that's used to create this kind of a sheep is the opposite. It's like, no, think for yourself, get out and do this and do this and do this for me and do this for me. And it's this weird contradiction, but it really works. I mean, the type of rhetoric that you would see like in a book like 1984, or even with dictators of today, if you look at Putin or some of the other dictators, they're going to use the same tactics, and it's the same kind of thing that Donald Trump kind of started doing, with attacking the press and all that kind of stuff. It's really basic stuff, but it really works. And I kind of wonder what kind of stories Philip K. Dick would be writing today if he were writing today. I think there'd be some really interesting, crazy stories about that kind of stuff. But the Republican Party has created this group, this small little shard that will just do what they're told, period. An extreme. They will do it. If you tell them to do it, if the right person tells them to do it, they will do it. And it's really hurting the party, which is a real shame because we already are in a two-party system. And if one of our parties fractures, we might be in a one-party system. I mean, it's crazy that the incumbent, Donald Trump, couldn't beat our current president. I mean, that's how bad he messed up, And now the Republican Party, they can't choose him because he won't win. They can't choose him as their person to run for president because he won't win. But at the same time, if they don't choose him, a fraction of their base is going to vote for him anyway. I mean, even with write-ins, it's like I used to hear back in the 80s and the 90s, like the Republican Party would fund some kind of the Green Party or something like that, something that Democrats would generally go for, and they would fund them and try to give them some momentum so that they could make a bunch of people who would have voted for the Democrat vote for the Green Party or whatever instead, because it just splits their votes. All of them feel like they're doing the right thing, but because we're in a two-party system, voting for a third party is really kind of throwing your vote away. I hate to say it, because I'd love to have more than two parties, but it's a weird truth. And using that kind of rhetoric sort of put the Republican Party in the same position that this society ended up in. which is they had a bunch of these sheep as followers, and now, because they're not all on the same page, thankfully, because I don't want to live in a world with a king, you know. America doesn't want a king. America doesn't want a dictator, even though a fraction of the population, a very vocal, smaller group, can really get excited about the idea. I guess because they think they'll be powerful in that regime, I guess. Even though here, a lot of them have just gone to prison, you know, and they're going to be in prison for a long time because treason, basically. I don't know, but it's dangerous to play with these ideas, because if it doesn't work, then you've fractured your political party. I wouldn't be surprised within the next 15 years if the Republican Party didn't have to change their name, you know, honestly. If they didn't just have to say, we are no longer the Republican Party, we are now the, I don't know, you know, the grassroots party or whatever, you know, whatever works. But they're in trouble right now. And it's really hard on us because there's only two parties. How are we supposed to have any kind of a real choice? So, I don't know. It's very dangerous. If it doesn't work, then you fracture the party. And if it does work, you end up with a dictator. So, for these type of tactics to be used in politics is a disaster for the society, and we're going through that right now. And I think that's exactly what this story is talking about. I believe that this society ended up with a dictator that now controls them for all eternity, and they have no ability to even consider fighting it because they are so dedicated and loving to their dictator that they're just doomed, you know. So I think this story is very important. I think it's a great story. I think it looks into the future, and he could have been reacting, I don't know, to Italy or even to Germany. You know, it's right after World War II. He could have just been saying, this is what happened. But it's crazy that we're kind of living through something like that right now in America. And maybe in a lot of countries, you know, I'm not sure, but it's a mess. But this is a great story. So if you get the chance, pick up one of these short story books. Philip K. Dick is great because all of his, I shouldn't say all, most of his novels are short. They're really short. So you can pick up Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and you can read it. If you're a reader, you can read it in a couple of weeks. You know, it's like nothing. It's not like trying to read Lord of the Rings or Dune. You know, it's short. They're going to be short and sweet. But for someone like me, who's not much of a reader, to be honest, these short stories are amazing. This is the way to go, in my opinion. My brother kind of turned me on to the idea of these short stories. I've got 2 other anthologies of other writers, and it's just a really neat way to get a lot of cool ideas, you know, to get a lot of different points of view and decide, I really like this writer, I'm not sure about this writer, and it's quick. You can do it fast. So look for one of these Philip K. Dick books. I got this at the Barnes & Noble. They just had it on the shelf there. But there are like 4 or 5 of them. I mean, he is very prolific. He's got like 40 novels. And I guess it's because most of them are shorter, you know. It's not like Stephen King or something where they just get mammoth. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you do, hit the like button, you know, maybe subscribe. And thanks so much for watching.